Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United. All right, Reds, welcome back to All for United. Dare I say it, as we try to get over yesterday's thumping. Well, if Graham Bailey will let us, we will try to get over it and move on to a slightly different subject. Actually, you know what? Let's pause there. We're going to talk about Ten Hag in a minute and a scoop that Graham Bailey and Scott Saunders put out 90-minute football last week, which then everyone seemingly followed with. So fair play to you boys for that. But first of all, let's just finally reflect on yesterday. Scott, as a fellow Red, how are you doing today? And how was that for you yesterday?
I'm tired, Ben. I'm very tired. Graham was fortunately there for us yesterday at the ground. I had the pleasure of watching it from my television screen, in front of my television screen. And as if we needed any more reminders of how far away United are from Man City and how far away they are from competing for the titles they were competing for in the 90s and the 2000s. It's going to be a long old way back, and there's a lot of things they need to fix.
Sorry, no, that didn't unmute. Graham, you've always mentioned, just bouncing off of what Scott said there, whenever we've chatted, the way you set yourself when it comes to chatting about Manchester United, as someone who's not a fan, is where fans position their expectations and where the club have maybe positioned their expectations recently compared to back in the day. I mean, would you sympathise slightly with the fact that yesterday we did look miles away? You were there, you watched Manchester City against Manchester United, and I think you put out the tweet that, God, they're no longer the noisy neighbours anymore. The roles reverse, so to speak. So what was your take on that yesterday? And does it showcase how far away United are?
Yeah, I attended. It was my first ever Manchester derby. I love being there, but being in the press room, the buzz, you could tell what a big game it was. You could tell United. Well, I've been to City games before against big teams, but it's something special about United. And I say, I still regard Manchester United as the biggest club in England, certainly, probably the world. And they're just so far away. And as I said to you guys off air, you're in danger of losing a generation of fans who think top four is the ultimate goal. And for Manchester United, it's not. It's nowhere near. And I know Ronaldo is going to get a lot of stick, etc., for not being there, etc. And we know that he's probably going to leave in the summer. He's leaving. He will leave in the summer because he knows he can't win at the club at the moment. He came to Manchester United in the summer. Such was his expectation level. He was going to challenge for trophies, if not the league. And I think we were all not guilty of it, but I think they had a squad far closer than the 22-point gap we now see. And it's hard to really put your finger, Ben. But you know, we had Ollie. As you know, I was never a fan of Ollie. I really wasn't a fan of the Ragnick appointment. But now this guy is going to go upstairs, and he's suddenly. I was speaking now. What I want to. I was speaking to someone in the press box yesterday who, like me, is mystified why this guy is being given the keys to the club suddenly. From what level? From what basis? And it frightens the life out of me from what I saw yesterday. And yeah, the players didn't put it in, but they looked clueless in terms of what they were being asked. Paul Pogba, the most forward player, who could have predicted that lineup? I joked on our Slack, Scott, didn't I? For 90 min, I was having a tongue-in-cheek go at whoever did our lineup prediction for that match. Why didn't you have Pogba as your false 10 and Fernandes as your false 9 and there's a 4-2-4? Who goes to Man City and plays a 4-2-4? I've had United fans coming at me on Twitter saying, "Oh, we were in this for the first 45." No, you weren't. You were lucky not to be 5-1 down. David De Gea was the only reason you weren't 5 goals down at halftime. De Bruyne had so much room in that first half. He couldn't believe he was playing with a smile on his face after 10 minutes. He couldn't believe his luck, and that's all down to Ragnick for me.
Yeah, Scott, can I quickly come to you? I mean, slightly away from it obviously ties in with the managerial side of things. Looking at it now, a change was made with Ollie leaving the club, and ultimately with Rangnick coming in, the football godfather, the Gen press or Gegen press, however you want to pronounce it, philosopher. What you're seeing now on that pitch compared to what you were seeing under Ollie and maybe managers gone by. With a new manager coming in, is this a much bigger job than just a style of play? Does the next manager have to be extremely brutal with the squad of players he's got in front of him?
Absolutely. I think the main issue will be that managers have not been able to be as brutal as they can be because the decision making above has been, there's players that, people have wanted to sell, former managers have wanted to sell that have been just vetoed by various decision makers, and they can't really get the changes to the squad that they want to make. So I think, Ten Hag's been, there's talks happening via intermediaries. Pochettino's name is never really going to escape United's clutches. But something has to change above them because, I know we've seen now that Richard Arnold has moved into the chief executive role, so he is going to be the one that is going to oversee all this. But they have to give the manager and whoever is going to be with him that power to make brutal decisions, because it's so obvious. You look at this squad; they've got players like David De Gea was signed by Alex Ferguson, and there's been 4 managers since that have signed players who are playing in this squad now. So there's just an amalgamation of loads of different players, loads of different identities. They've tried different styles, and it's just not working. And they've just got this big, massive mess that somebody needs to fix up. And I don't think somebody like Ten Hag or Pochettino is strong enough to do that themselves. They need support, and it comes from above for me.
Getting a live chat, by the way, as the guys chat. If you've got any questions for Graeme or Scott, we'll get onto them on United's managerial hunt. We've seen a lot of things come out since the derby. A couple of players that you've mentioned there, Scott. I just want to talk to you, Graeme, quickly about someone who's, I'm using this in the nicest way, by the way. You've always been a little bit outspoken about United when it comes to terms of being brutally honest with your thoughts, and you will never shy away from them, to the fact that we started building a relationship off the back of some comments you made on another platform, and you was kind enough to give us your time to discuss them quite freely with us, and we had that debate, and there was a lot of respect throughout it. So I just want to hear from you quickly, Graeme, on the punditry and some of the stuff that was mentioned afterwards and some of the stuff going around today. A lot of ex-players, Mika Richards had a very big bashing with Gary Neville over the type of manager United should be going forward with. Ex-United players like Peter Schmeichel have come out and gone, loads of those players aren't good enough. I still think he's a club ambassador, by the way, as well. What role do these former players play in the next hire of the manager? And what I mean by that is Gary Neville was going on about how Conte isn't a right-suited fit to Manchester United. Well, what type of manager needs to be a right-suited fit to United? A, and B, how damaging are some of the stuff that's coming out after games from some of the former pros, so to speak, about the managerial hunt?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of cliques formed at United recently in terms of, it almost reminds me of the England squad back in the days when you had the Liverpool Man United things, and there seems to be these camps within the Man United camp, which is unheard of. Peter Schmeichel, I was there, I was sat in front of him at the game, he was doing radio work, and he was lost for words at times, and
for words on the radio, Graeme.
Well, he was angry. Yeah, he was very angry, but he was saying
quickly,
things
Graeme,
he was saying things off air he couldn't on.
I watched a game with Peter Schmeichel when I was living out in Dubai. He was doing a ambassador appearance, and he actually sat next to me. And we won't talk about Dwight York. He came and then went straight away. Won't mention anything about that. But Peter Schmeichel stayed and watched the whole game, and it was a 0-0 draw against Hull. I've never seen someone like an ex-United footballer be so into the game, feel like all the emotions of the fans. Like he was sat there and every shot, every opportunity he's got, he wasn't afraid to let his opinions and his thoughts out. And it sounds like you saw that from him yesterday as well, in terms of his grumblings.
Yeah, I think that really is what's missing upstairs here. You've got John Murtough there, and you've got Ralph Rangnick set to go next to him. Where's the passion for you? Not just for football. Where's the passion for United there? I think the aim sometimes is Bayern Munich. I said this to Scott the other day. They try and aim for this Bayern Munich way of doing things, where they've got Khan, Salihamidzic. You've got to be able to recognise these former players. I know a lot of United players are in the press, but you need to get someone in there and Darren Fletcher's currently in there, who is the complete opposite of what I'm saying. You need someone inspirational, someone who knows about it. And there must be someone with a United link there. For me, I think, looking at it from what I've seen, I'm not saying with Ten Hag, but I think Edwin van der Sar would be a perfect fit upstairs. Obviously, John Murtaugh's not going to do it now, but someone like that with a footballing brain, with a Manchester United relationship, someone like that, that's who they need up there. And then you can work from that. I think that's what's missing upstairs. But for me, with that in general, new managers coming in and players, And I'm going to show. I don't think the fix is as big as what we think. I think watching that game yesterday, the take I got from it, and I'm thinking back. I've just watched the Robbo documentary, and it gets me thinking about Inns. That midfield is the problem. That centre midfield, the lack of heart, spirit, and quality. McTominay and Fred should not be anywhere near Manchester United centre midfield. I think if you swapped. We talked about pre-game. No City players are getting the United team, or United players are getting the City team. Sorry. If you put Rodri into that United team, I think the level would be amazingly higher afterwards. And I think, there's lots of issues in the team. We want issues, but I think that central midfield, the lack of heart and captaincy. McTominay, he's puts in a shift. Yeah, he's a Manchester United lad, but he was never. He couldn't even lace Nicky Butt's boots. I think that is the one glowing thing for the next manager has to come in and sort that centre midfield out. Yeah, there are lots of issues, but it's not going to get solved in one summer, is it? We've seen that. It's not going to get, but I think that from yesterday, I watched them two in midfield and thought, this team will never go anywhere whilst you two are playing in there. And then it's a bit harsh, but I think that's the prime thing for the next manager. You have to change that centre midfield for two. You need a captain in there. They need a captain in this team, and Maguire gets a lot of flack. But who else do you appoint in that team?
Exactly
it's a tough one. Maybe De Gea, but I'm not a big fan of a keeper being the captain. But maybe give it to De Gea. But that central midfield, the heart of the team, and you can argue the heart of the club is missing. When the heart of the team is missing, I think that's a huge thing.
In a minute, you might see a comedy like Zoom moment. My cat is behind that blind, and she's doing everything she can to try and knock something over. So that's going to be quite entertaining.
She's putting more effort in than the few of those United players, isn't she? She's putting more effort.
She would do a shift in the middle of the park. She's combined the way she gets my feet in the morning. I'll tell you, she'd be able to put a shift in. Well, look, it all starts with a rebuild, doesn't it, Scott? And you and Graham put together a fantastic piece and really led the way with this. And this is why we've called this Behind the Scoop, because I want to get some information behind the scoop and in podcast form chat about the piece that you guys put together. And it was around Manchester United's managerial hunt with Erik Ten Hag impressing Manchester United as they continue the search. Let's start off with the two names that are mentioned at the forefront when it comes to Manchester United and next manager, Ten Hag and Mauricio Pochettino. So first of all, I want to start with Ten Hag and with you, Scott. What is impressing the Manchester United hierarchy about him then? And ultimately for you, I don't know how much you've seen from Ajax and learned about his career so far, but for you, what do you like about Erik Ten Hag as potentially the next Manchester United manager?
We always talk about style of play. I mean, that's the big thing, coming through an Ajax system, or, being in charge of players who've come through an Ajax system. It's relatively simple to do for an Ajax manager. I think you've seen other Ajax managers in the past come to the Premier League and, not do so well. I think Jose Mourinho called one of them the worst manager in Premier League history, if I remember rightly. But Ten Hag's got a good track record in Europe. He's really overachieved with Ajax. And I know that there's been a lot of quality players come through at one time. You think of De Ligt and Frankie de Jong, who've gone on to, some of Europe's biggest clubs, and Donny van de Beek has gone to another one as well in United and can't get in the team anymore. That's you really look around at how many managers are really available and kind of fit the idealisms of what United style and what they want it to be. There's not really too many of them, so I think Ten Hag does make sense. He's been looking for a jump up for a while, and I think that. My initial thoughts a few months ago was that it'd be a too big a jump for him. But, I think that he'd be coming in, he'd have to oversee a big rebuild. And I go back to the point that I made earlier, it really depends on who is above him, helping him out, trying to make these decisions on which squad members go forward with him. Because I don't think there's so many players in there who maybe will be here at the club in the next 2 years. But I think, he speaks well. He's apparently learning English, even though he's been speaking English quite freely and for a number of years now. But he does strike me as one of the, well, as we put in the report, there's really, everything does keep cycling back to two main candidates in Pochettino and Ten Hag. So I think Ten Hag's the one that he's the darling at the moment, isn't he? He hasn't really got a bad track record against him. His teams have been playing well. He's rebuilt Ajax after selling some crucial players, and they're doing well in the Champions League again, 6 out of 6 in the group stages, and they conceded 7 goals all season before the weekend. So he's doing well, but it is a big job. But like I say, any manager coming in is not going to be able to do this alone for me.
You mentioned there, Scott, about it being a step up, and I think you actually did hit on this a little bit. But there's a step up, isn't there, from Ajax? And then there's managing Manchester United in the current state it is in. You've mentioned before this as well about him needing help from above, and Graham's mentioned about Edwin van der Sar. Don't know how realistic both of them coming in at the summer is, and how realistic it is for United to pull their finger out and the owners to invest in the right thing right now when it comes to the rebuild of their internal structure, and not just players' transfers. But is that the concern for you with Ten Hag? This is different. This isn't the Eredivisie. This is the Premier League. And this is big egos. This is a very different job to Ajax.
Oh, it absolutely is. But how much worse can it get? I would ask. Yesterday's defeat I put it down as probably the third most embarrassing defeat of the season. And when you consider how embarrassing that second half was, United have lost 5-0 to Liverpool at home. They got battered 4-1 by Watford, although 2 of the goals came late on. How much worse can it get? United could end up finishing in the Europa Conference League places if they come 7th, with Tottenham and Arsenal having 3 games in hand on them. It's got to be a big time to reset. I don't think, and Graham might disagree with me on this, but Antonio Conte going into this squad and trying to manage this group of players who've really not shown that they're up to it. You've seen the responses he's getting out of some of the Tottenham players. What makes you think that he's going to lift the level of this squad that much? It's just rotten from the top. It really is. And they need to address something. And, I feel like getting back to, if they can play a decent style of football and remold the squad over the next 2 or 3 years and actually see it through this time, because they've tried this a few times in the past and ended up abandoning plans after 2.5, 3 years or whatever. I think that would be the way to go. I think they've got to really take a look at themselves now and where they actually are from what they think they are. And just acknowledge that and try and build. Arsenal not as big a club as United, but they've done it. They've taken a hit and now they look better. So I don't want to say United could learn a thing or two from Arsenal, but that's essentially what I'm saying.
Can I, and you can answer this as briefly or as in as much detail as you like, Scott, from your understanding. Is there any more interest from the United hierarchy in Ten Hag versus Pochettino? For you, is there more talks or more being spoken about Ten Hag right now than Pochettino? It seems to always sway one way or the other. But where are you at the moment in terms of the information you're hearing around Ten Hag and his availability in the summer?
I think the way I'd put it really is that there's been people within United for a number of years who've wanted Pochettino and saw him as the person to take them forward next. Whereas, I think, and I put in the piece that Ralph Rangnick is a fan. He had actually addressed the reports on Sky Sports before the game the other day as well, saying he'd never met him before, but he does like what he's done with Ajax and actually spoke at length about him. So I think there's a bit of old guard versus new guard for me. And United they're gonna have conversations via intermediaries with a number of candidates. It's not only Poch and Ten Hag for me, but I think it does keep circling back to those two.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Scott. Graham, let me come over to you then, because whenever we've spoken, you've been an advocate of Pochettino to United, haven't you? And we've spoken about him quite a lot, but between us. So these reports have come out about Ten Hag. First of all, we've spoken about him there. From your point of view, Pochettino. I mean, what is it? We've heard Scott there say that people within United have seen him as the man for a number of years. I remember when Fergie retired, there was that video on Sky Sports straight like a couple of days later of him and Sir Alex Ferguson having lunch together, and everyone was like, Pochettino's going to be the next man. It hasn't happened to this point. And looks like a lot of fans are actually quite skeptical about Pochettino for whatever reason. But why for you, Graham Bailey, could Pochettino?
Yeah, I like Poch. I like the work he's done. I think he's gone to PSG and coped. I thought it was a wrong club for him generally. He's had to go in there and deal with Galacticos, and we'll see a perfect fit for PSG in Zinedine Zidane when he takes over in the summer. But that is a feather in his cap that he can go into United. That means he can deal with the younger players. He can deal with the star players. He's dealt with bigger players than, for instance, Ten Hag has ever known. And I think that's a massive plus point. For me, Pochettino, the way he can progress players And I haven't seen that as much as in Ten Hag, because they've got a wonderful youth system. But look what he did at Tottenham. I said we go over all ground, but what he did with Kane and Son, Ali to a lesser extent. I think how it's described to me at the weekend, I was speaking to someone close to United, and whilst Poch probably can be a plug and play manager from the off, there probably is a higher ceiling with Ten Hag. Ten Hag could be the new Klopp or Guardiola. We don't know. So that's the first time I've imagined it from that perspective, where, yeah, I guess that's a fair point. But Pochettino could probably have a challenge for title, but, do you go for Ten Hag, who could potentially be the next great manager? And that was a fair point. And I think, we don't like to talk about him, but losing Mason Greenwood is massive for United. And I think what Pochettino could have done with him would have been a big factor in him getting the job. With him not there anymore, I think that will impact on Pochettino. I really do. And now we're seeing Rashford, who clearly won't want to, from the reports we've done this morning, he's not happy under Rangnick. And if Rangnick is staying, the possibility is that he'll be leaving. So, and although I spoke about Van der Sar being in the ideal world, he would come in, I don't for one minute think that it won't be Rangnick and Murta who are running the show. So on that basis, as Scott said, Ten Hag is Rangnick's recommendation, as it seems. And Murta gives takes a lot of very seriously what Rangnick says. He's advisor. He's brought him in. So I think everything at this moment in time is pointing to Ten Hag, and it wouldn't surprise me within a month if we get close to confirmation of one of these coming in, and everything's pointing towards Ten Hag at the minute.
I was going to say, Graham, from your point of view on this, we've always spoken about potential, and Scott there was talking about intermediaries having conversations. When does it get to the point, or when can it get to a point within things like this? We always speak about it happening with players and transfers, but when can it get to a point where John Murtough or Richard Arnold actually speak to the likes of Ten Hag and Pochettino personally and really progress this process in hiring their next manager? When do you think that is? Obviously, I'm not asking you for a date. No one can give us a date. It'd be like asking Eddie Hearn for confirmation on when Anthony Joshua is going to fight Tyson Fury. Literally, there's no point in asking for a date. But time frame wise, how quickly does that need to happen?
Well, I'm being told by agents across Europe that they're asking for United. They're telling United about prospective targets and prospective moves. These players need to know who United's new manager is sooner rather than later. United are pursuing targets. I know a couple will speak on future shows about them, but they want to know who the new manager. They can't commit to Manchester United without knowing who the manager is. And it's not to say they're not dictating, not saying we want X or Y. They just need to know who it is. So I think United will know who their next manager is. If they don't already, I suspect they do. If they don't already, I think within 6 weeks, everyone will know who United's next manager is. But I'm not saying there'll be official confirmation, but we will know.
And with that, Scott, when it comes to official confirmation, I mean, ultimately, it's going to be a big one, isn't it? We've spoken a lot on this show already about the next manager needing time, and can it get any worse? Ultimately, if it does a wave here need riding a little bit? Does ultimately those words that Sir Alex Ferguson famously said when Moyes came in, have faith, have trust in your new manager, now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. They have to sort things out quite quickly, as Graham alluded to there. It's not just incoming players. There's a lot of players in the squad who, Marcus Rashford has been mentioned today, who's uncertain of his position, can't get in the team. You got Paul Pogba who's out of contract. If United don't get Champions League, we'll see what happens with him. But he's been leaving his decision until the end of the season. You got Jesse Lingard as well, who's out of contract. You've got Cristiano Ronaldo, who, there's loads of big name players in here within the squad who need to know who this person is. But yeah, United have to get a move on. And ultimately, United, by the time this season finishes, I think we've got 10 games left or something like that. Maybe two and a bit months, you're going to be looking forward to next season already. So something has to be done quite soon. I'm kind of with Graham there. I really think that United probably do have a bit of an idea of who they want, and they're probably making moves to make it happen. But, maybe things change this week after Pochettino goes out of the Champions League, if that's what happens. But we will ultimately see in the next few weeks. But if United have any sort about them, they need to they can't leave this till July 1st. Let's put it that way, you know?
Yeah, because also we want a pre-season tour where the next manager can actually spend some time with the players and do what he needs to do with them and not confined within COVID restrictions potentially and all that being up in the air. That's also really important for the players, isn't it? So fingers crossed we can kickstart on the right foot next season. Hello to John, Grant, Fred. There's loads of people in the live chat and on Twitter as well. Thank you guys for joining us. If you're watching anywhere but on YouTube, come over to YouTube. Just search All for United in the big box and hit subscribe, like this video, get any comments in. I mean, maybe in a couple of weeks we'll revisit when new things come to fruition and hopefully the guys can answer some more of your questions. Graeme, come on, let's edge some bets here. Well, not bets, we don't do betting, but let's edge some opinions here. Ten Hag, that's who your piece mainly centers around in terms of United's hierarchies being impressed with him. You say that we're not far away with the current crop of players. Potentially, could Ten Hag, you think, be the man to steer United back to where they need to go?
I think Ten Hag will get the job. I say I'm a bit with Scott. I'm not entirely convinced. I was won over by in that conversation I had with someone close to United at the weekend about the not knowing Ten Hag's ceiling, and that did make me think. Well, that's a very fair point. He could very well be the next Klopp or something. So is it worth, I think Ten Hag's more of a gamble than Pochettino. I think that's where we have to see it. Pochettino is a very good Premier League manager, the way he deals. I think you're guaranteed top 4 on a yearly basis with him. Are you guaranteed a title charge with Pochettino? I think that's probably the debate. And so if you do have a bigger ceiling with Ten Hag, at this point, yeah, maybe go for it. And yeah, if he is the next Klopp, then you've struck gold, haven't you? And so yeah, I'm in two minds. I've sort of been won over by the Ten Hag argument, as it were. So, but I agree with Scott. They've got to get on with this. They've got to do it. I think the interim appointment was a disaster, and it has been for the club. Let's just get on with it, get the appointment. And I do think it will be Ten Hag. And so I think I'm coming around more to him, knowing that it probably is him.
Scott, as a United fan, excited by Ten Hag?
I am, in a sense, but I do also know that there's been a lot of, United have seen several managers come through in the past and ultimately fail. So I'm at the point where there's not a lot of confidence that, we need to see changes. We actually need to see something change for fans to be put back on side and for them to believe that United are actually going in the right direction. Because I think we had that maybe at the back end of last season. With Ollie, I know they didn't win a trophy, but things were going okay. They came second. They lost in the Europa League final. But then, obviously, everything went to pot. So they have to make a decision soon. They have to get it done soon. And I'm not going to come and sit here and say Erik Ten Hag, if he's appointed, is going to win the league within the next 3 years, because there are too many other problems that United need to address before that happens.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well made. Guys, thank you. Graeme Bailey, Scott Saunders, 90-Minute Football. Go and check these guys out as well. Scott's got a Manchester United podcast on the go. Where can people find it, Scott?
You can search at Promised Land Podcast, or the Promised Land Podcast. I don't know why I messed that up. Promised Land Podcast. We're on audio, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc., and on YouTube as well. You can go and subscribe. We do shows on Tuesdays and Fridays. And also check out 90min.com as well.
Lovely. Thank you, mate. And Graeme, where can people find you for more of your wisdom and Middlesbrough gloatingness?
Yeah, I did notice Scott missed out that Middlesbrough defeat is one of your worst. I miss out. Yeah, at Graeme Bill on Twitter, at 90min football. Find most of my stuff there, and we'll have lots of United stuff coming up in the next few weeks, I think.
Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you, Scott. Lovely to meet you, pal. 90-Minute Football is where you can go to check out more from Graeme and Scott on Manchester United's managerial search. Ten Hag is impressing United's hierarchy. So will he be the man? Keep it locked, and we'll find out very soon, I think. Thank you guys for watching. Hit like, get in the comments, and speak to you soon.